Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Family Business. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Poorvi Patodia. I've known Poorvi for quite some time, and her story is exemplary. It is absolutely extraordinary. And so on the show, we usually talk about how family and careers are intertwined, and Poorvi is a living epitome of what that is. So Poorvi, thanks so much for joining the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Thrilled to be here. Thrilled to connect.
Yeah, me too. Glad you're here. So if you could, in the first minute or so, just give people a quick snapshot of who you are and what you're doing today, and then we could build out all the context of everything that took to get you there.
Sure, yeah. I'm the founder and CEO of Vienna Snacks. We are a healthy snacking brand that's focused in plant-based protein snacks. We're one of the main brands that created and pioneered the idea of roasted bean snacks or roasted chickpeas. And we now also have branched out into healthier puffs. And, you know, I started by getting the brand into one store outside of Boston in 2012. And we've now grown. We're in about 15,000 stores all over the country, from, you know, Whole Foods to Walmart.
All right. So who's the first store? Who was the first one to say yes?
It was a Whole Foods location outside of Boston in Hingham, Mass. Yeah. So I found, I got a tip from a friend who had also started a brand the year prior. And I said, how did you get your brand into Whole Foods? And she said, you got to find the local forager that doesn't mind doing the paperwork. And that was like, you know, that was back when Whole Foods had this role of a local forager, where in every store, where their whole job was to find the local products and, you know, that their community was interested in, and they could bring in an individual item into a singular store. But it requires the same amount of paperwork as being set up as a national brand. So you'd be surprised the barriers that you have to climb over. And finding somebody who not only loves your brand or likes what you're trying to do is important, but then you got to find that person who's willing to kind of stick their neck out for you and go through some extraordinary hoops to help you kind of, you know, get into that retailer. So
did you have to stare at this man or woman and watch them taste your snacks and just staring at them saying, I hope they like it. I hope they like it.
Yeah. It was my first buyer meeting. And, you know, I got this tip from this friend, as I said, and she said, you know, call this guy, his name is Brian, at this store. And I called him up and I said, and at the time I didn't have finished packaging. All I had was like, the best way to describe it is like a prototype. And I had some sample packaging. And so he agreed. I told him the concept on the phone. He agreed to meet with me. I went to that local store. We sat in the seating area next to prepared foods. I brought out, you know, a bag full of samples of food and a mock-up of the packaging. I told him the concept, the benefits.
What you folks probably don't know is Poorvi is a computer science major from Carnegie Mellon, Duke MBA, and here she is sitting in front of this guy who's in charge of snacks. And it's just an amazing transformation in her career and her choice. When I met Poorvi, she was heading up a corporate track and doing exceptionally well and on her way to becoming immensely successful. So I'm going to ask you the question you've probably been asked before, but I don't think people here will know, is what prompted the change when you were at Mcneil? Is that right?
Yeah,
and you made the transition.
For Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, you know, I grew up in a family that was immensely into food. And
was that here in the States?
Yeah, here in the States. And not that I ever thought that I would necessarily go down the path of food, being in the business of food, but I was always very interested in food. I was always very interested in nutrition and kind of health. But I actually started my career in software coming out of Carnegie Mellon. And so I, you know, really got my some experience with entrepreneurial companies in the software space. And then I realized that I wanted, one of the companies that I was working for in software was selling its software to big consumer branded companies like Kraft and Procter and Gamble. That's when I got exposed to this idea of, you know, working on a brand that where you're creating products for consumers. And I found that to be really exciting. And I love the idea of really trying to understand why consumers make the decisions that they do and how they think. And so that got me interested in brand management. I went back to get my MBA at Duke, interned at Procter and Gamble, worked at division of Johnson & Johnson Mcneil. And that's when I really got my feet wet on this is how you manage a really large brand. I worked on a couple of different brands, the largest being the Splenda Sweetener brand. And but then eventually, coming back to your question, what led me to leave and start up my own venture was just that I saw an opportunity. And for me at the time, really the opportunity, and still is the opportunity, was that originally I was trying to solve a problem for myself. I was pregnant and I was eating a lot of natural and organic snacks. This is while I was at Mcneil. And I kind of had this aha moment, like I'm eating these, you know, or let's say organic tortilla chips, and they're made with better ingredients because they're not artificial and they've got these really clean ingredients. But ultimately, nutritionally, this food is still not doing anything really positive for my body. It's still just empty calories. And I just kind of had this thought, like, why aren't there snacks that are actually nutrition positive, that have protein, that have fiber? I'm also vegetarian. So like one of the first things I do when I come across a new food product is I immediately turn it to the back and I'm looking to see like how much protein's in here, how much fiber's in here. Like I want to know, is this going to actually fill me up or not? And that's really what I was looking for that I didn't find. And so I had that need and for myself. And in that moment, I also thought about the snack that I ate growing up, which was a roasted chickpea. And I kind of just had this thought, like, I wonder if there's something I can do with this for myself. I started looking into it, and that's when the brand and the business side of me kind of came alive, and I got really excited because I realized, like, whoa, there's this whole category of ingredients, legumes, which are just incredible. They're eaten in huge quantities all over the world, not really consumed that much here in the US yet, but they had all the right properties of what consumers are looking for, like naturally high in protein and fiber, free of the top 8 food allergens, great tasting. And so I kind of put all that together and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it now. Like I felt like there was an opportunity and this very, very strong hunch. And
while you're pregnant and having a full-time job, the timing's now. Fabulous, Poorvi.
Well, so there was a little bit of a gap. So I was pregnant and I had this idea. I kind of did some stuff with it for myself. Then I put it aside and then I kind of decided to kind of go for it. So, but yeah, so that was, I kind of just took the leap. I resigned and decided I'd go after it.
All right. So a bunch of things. I don't know how long we're going to talk, but I got a lot to ask you. So first of all, who was the person who made this for you when you were a kid?
My mom, but also store bought, like both.
Oh, okay.
It's like a very common snack in India.
So. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize if it was a home thing or if your mom was going to take all the credit for this or how this was going to go.
Yeah.
Did she have to sign an NDA of some kind or anything like that?
No.
Awesome. So and the other thing that always was buzzing through my head before we started talking was the tasters. Who were the tasters ahead of time and who were you just ramming chickpeas into their face to say, is this good? Is this flavor good? Is this flavor good? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, of course it was my family. So, I mean, my husband and by that time I'd had my daughter who was 4 or 5 at the time. So she tells me to this day, she remembers coming home and and my husband too, that there was just chickpeas. I lived in an apartment in downtown Boston.
Yeah.
And so, you can just imagine my husband coming home from work and here I was before in a professional corporate role, as you described. I'd be traveling, I'd be doing conference calls and doing all this stuff. And then he comes home and there's just chickpeas like all over the kitchen, all over like every room in our tiny little apartment. So, you know, people did think I was crazy. So did, by the way, you know, some of the early manufacturers that I was trying to partner with, just because they thought it was an absolutely crazy idea. And so, you know, it was definitely laughed out of the room. Laughed is not the right word, because when people are trying to, when people don't take you seriously, they're not literally laughing at you. They kind of just stop paying attention, but or walk out of the room.
Well, they're paying attention now.
Yeah, now it's, you know, it's a category. So
now, do you read Malcolm Gladwell? Do you know some of his work?
Yeah.
So you got your 10,000 hours in by being in the right spot at the right time of getting involved. And I'm sure some of it is intentional, of course, but all this brand work and some of these big consumer packaged good companies, I mean, look where it led you, all because of that. If you had stayed in tech and there was no exposure to that, who knows what would have happened? Maybe this would have never occurred.
No, yeah, for sure. Huh.
So how do the decisions to start building this out come into play as it relates to your husband and your daughter? And then I know you had another one later on. How were you able to plan that out, knowing that, okay, I still have certain commitments and goals and dreams for my family, in addition to this huge goal that you have building up this company?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, first of all, I've had a tremendous amount of support from my husband and my family at large. And so I do come from a family of entrepreneurs. You know, my dad started his own business focused in computers. His family is all very entrepreneurial, most of which those family members are in India. And then on my husband's side, both of his parents are doctors, and so they have their own practice. And so while they're not, you know, your traditional type of entrepreneur, they're just very practical people. And so, you know, I've always had, I've been blessed in the sense that I've had a tremendous amount of support from them. Doubters in the mix too, to be clear. Doubters, but you know, you take that in stride, right? As an entrepreneur, you realize that not everyone's they're always supportive, but they may not always agree with the vision or, you know, until you can kind of get to a certain level. So you have to figure out how to use that to make yourself stronger, and kind of see all the different perspectives. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is that, you know, I've had that support, and it's meant the world. And there are times when I do talk to other entrepreneurs who don't have family, and they're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how you do this with a family, just because the amount of hours and the level of commitment that it requires is immense, right? It's tremendous. And but for me, I think, you know, not only has it worked, but I think it's been really a source of strength and a foundation for me, because one, if I didn't have a family, I really would just drive myself crazy, because I would just work I already work a ridiculous amount of hours, but I don't even know what the other alternative would be. But you know, but also they're grounding, and they're there for you both through the ups and the downs. And then not to mention that when you're working on something that's really tangible, that they can understand, like food, as you mentioned earlier, I've built in taste testers, and, you know, they're also a source of inspiration, because I'm working on snacks. And we launched our second product line, which is a line of puffs. And that really came, you know, one of the things that woke me up to that opportunity was seeing my youngest eating some other, you know, puff snack brands. And
Pirate
I'm
Booty?
like, I'm not going to say any brand names, but all I'm saying is that, yeah, I mean, they're just, you know, it's just made with corn and rice, and there's nothing wrong with corn and rice, just except for the fact that it's not really, it's just, like I said, it's just empty calories, right? So, you know, is there a viable alternative that consumers would love that is actually can do something positive for you? So
Let me see a little bit what's going on behind the curtain. Were there any flavors that you tried that you thought would be good and the kids like spit it on the floor, or your husband said absolutely not? Like, were there any fails for you as far as flavors go?
Yeah, I mean, of course, right? I mean, I don't know that I've had that, but I've had the opposite, which is you think that people love the taste of something and you think it's going to absolutely fly, and then you're surprised that it doesn't. And so, you constantly have to be, and I think what's difficult about consumer products, especially when you're small and you're not working with, a huge market research budget, or basically your market research budget is zero. You're, in order for you to build something that's really sizable and substantial, you're not only trying to like fundamentally change consumer habits, but you're trying to create something that's going to make like millions or tens of millions of people happy, right? And so you're always going to have some percentage of those people that love this flavor. And so it's hard to really say that any, one flavor is a failure. It's always about, because there's always going to be people that you find that love that flavor and can't believe that, that the larger kind of more mass audience didn't love it as much. So it's always about prioritization and what do you think is like the most valuable or most efficient set of flavors or SKUs for your brand.
Now, what do the kids say about you? Like when someone at school says, "What does your mom do?" What do they say?
I think they're like, my mom, like my younger one probably says, my mom makes chip keys.
I want to be in the room when she tries to explain that to the teacher.
Yep. And my older one can, my mom started a brand, and, I think it's cool for them when they have friends in class who bring our snacks for lunch. Or their teachers are like, "Oh my God, I didn't know, your mom started that company. I eat, I buy their snacks, or my son eats their snacks, or whatever." So I think that's when it kind of resonates with them, because they're like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool,"
Well, that's the interesting thing. Like I have a daughter, she's 16, and my wife is similar to you as far as drive goes. I mean, she's more corporate than you are, but she has a similar personality. And my daughter reveres her. She just thinks that my wife makes the sun rise and set every day. And so I'm curious, do the girls look at you differently than, I don't know, I don't know what other daughters look at their moms, but I'm curious, like when they look at you from a accomplishment standpoint or just career standpoint, does it resonate with them yet, or are they still too young?
I think it does resonate with them. I don't know that it resonates with them within the context of like, do I revere my mom or do I not? But I do think that they have a certain level of respect. And I think that they, in some ways, it gives us a point of connection, or makes everything that I'm doing relatable. Because part of what I try to do with them also is really try to teach them like the core foundations of entrepreneurship, which I think at a very, very, very core level, it's really about saying that I want to make change happen. I see an opportunity, or I think something should be done in a better way, or can be done in a better way. And I'm going to go out and actually make that change happen. And so I really try to take, that concept of what I consider that to be like the core of the entrepreneurial spirit. And I've tried to instill it in them through different things that we talk about, or different activities, because it can really be applied. It doesn't have to be just about business, right? I mean, it could be applied to social injustice. It could be applied to, a nonprofit. It could be applied to really anything, but it's just this idea. I want them to realize that like, they don't have to accept anything around them, for what they are. And to also realize that somebody else decided what everything around them, how it should be set up. to create that kind of recognition in the kids.
That's pretty heady.
Yeah. Well, it's just whether it's their pencil, their backpack, how the town is set up. I mean, somebody else made those decisions, right? And do they feel good about it or not? Do they feel like there's a way to make it better or whatever?
That's really well said. Because you're setting an example in a totally unique way of getting them to understand the origin of everything, and as it relates to their ability to create whatever they want. Now, where's your husband in all this? Because I have a feeling there's a lot lurking back there, because there's no way you married somebody who's not near your equal or your equal. So what's been his role in all this, and how has he been as far as involved with helping you build this company?
Yeah, initially he was more involved just because I had no support. So we actually both started our career in enterprise software, which is where we met each other. We actually met each other at our first company out of undergrad. So, but then he was coming out of Penn and Wharton. I was coming out of Carnegie Mellon. And he ended up also going back to business school. So he kind of moved from, just as I moved from software to consumer products, he moved from software to the finance world.
Okay.
And he ended up in investment management, and now he's in venture capital. So that's kind of his area of focus now. And so, I mean, I think, where he plays a role in all of this is, first of all, we have we're like opposite personalities. So he definitely, challenges me in a really good way in terms of the assumptions I'm making on the brand and the company, and kind of opens my eyes to kind of different perspectives on how I should be thinking about things. He also, just because of where his career path has led him and kind of what naturally gets him excited, like when I've gone through fundraising, it's helpful to be living and be married to a person in the VC space, not because he has any influence over, the VCs that I ended up raising money from, but more thinking of getting into the mind of a VC, of how they think and how he's talking to different CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs, and how he approaches fundraising, what his goals are for his fund. And so it just kind of helped me from that standpoint. But he's just a great business person, somebody that I can bounce ideas off of too. So,
well, it's just phenomenal to be so supportive of something that's so dramatically a left turn from what you were doing. And if he
both
is,
of us.
well, yeah, I mean, it's truly amazing of what marriage can do. I speak to universities sometimes, and, whenever they ask the question, what's the most important thing in your career? I've been saying this for 20 years. It's the person you marry. And that's the biggest decision that you're going to make.
That's true.
I mean, imagine if you married a guy who didn't back you on this and didn't think you should do it.
No, that would not be possible.
Of course.
Would not be possible. Yeah.
Nah, and plus, by you being successful, it challenges him to continue wanting to drive and to be more. And so now his career is ascending at the same rate probably. And it's just, it's really there's something about it that, the rising tide raises all boats kind of mentality, where it just keeps escalating. And now your kids are now trending in that way. And I'm sure that they're already noticing and watching the way you guys work and the success that you're having and the people that you rub elbows with, and seeing their mom on social media and interviews on TV and such. That's a good question, though, that I'm always curious about people with kids your age is, how do you juggle the social media? They see you on it all the time, and I'm sure they want to use it too. So where's the line on that?
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring this up, because we're literally, it's been a topic of conversation in our home recently, because my older daughter, who just turned 13, she just got a cell phone. And by just, I mean like yesterday. So
awesome. Yeah, so she's trying to put everything on there, whatever she can throw on there, I'm sure.
So no, but we've agreed that she's not going to be on social media. So she's getting the cell phone so she can stay in touch with her friends and call her friends and be in touch with us when she's out and about. But she's going to stay off of social media. So yeah, I mean, I think, every child is so different. My two kids have very different personalities, and one of them is super enamored with social media, and one of them is interested, but not like, I must be on social media today. So they both have a lot of familiarity with it, obviously, just because of my brand and the fact that, as you said, like I'm on social media for different reasons. Look, parenting can be hard, right? There's no right answers. I know parents who have, their kids have been using cell phones since they were 7. And I know other parents who waited till 8th grade to give their kid a cell phone. So it's such a personal decision and driven by you and your family and your kids. So
yeah, because it's all encompassing. We did similar to you. My kids didn't get a cell phone until middle school, and it was a tough decision because there was a lot of pushback. And I said, look, guys, the answer is no. And luckily my wife and I, like we were talking earlier, are on the same page. Grab a book, do something else, go outside. Eventually you'll get there, because we're not, troglodytes. Like we're going to get them into the technology. And now I'm getting TikTok videos sent to me from my son, everything that's a dog related, because we got a dog in the middle of this pandemic thing. So everything that's dog related, I get every dog video there is. And so, yeah, and there's a lot of it, but they've still never abused it. And I think it's because we waited. Yeah, there's been nothing quirky or odd or, hey, are you sure you want to post that? Like there's been nothing like that. And I think a lot of it is because they're older. Just my take. It's for my 2 kids. I can't speak for anyone else's kids, but for me, I think that's what works.
Yeah.
So what do you do for fun? I mean, you work your tail off. Your husband works his tail off. Like there's got to be some kind of downtime. And I've never talked to you about this. Do you have anything outside of work that you do?
It's my family, right? I mean, whatever time I have left, it's like it's all of it goes to my family. It goes to friends and my community. I think one of the silver linings of COVID has just been more time with family and less time traveling and commuting. And so that's been a real benefit. And we've also had a chance to meet more of our neighbors and spend time with neighbors outside. I do love to cook. So that's kind of one of my things that I do, that like when I call it being 2D versus 3D, which is going to sound like a strange concept, but when I am just like in a mode where I'm just working and doing nothing else day after day, I feel like I'm becoming 2-dimensional. Yep. And so to become fully 3-dimensional again, I love to cook or, just spend time kind of with the kids and being
What's the best thing you make? What's your dish?
I make all kinds of stuff. So anything from different Indian food to lasagna to Asian food to, whatever. So
yeah, it's funny.
Wide variety of stuff.
Our go-to celebratory food, believe it or not, is Indian food. And
really?
Everything from biryani to fal to vindaloo to what does my daughter like? I can't remember what it is. Kufta, not kufta.
Kofta.
Yeah, and now I'm drawing a blank on the one thing that she loves, but we eat it regularly.
All the time.
Yeah, and awesome. I can't cook it though. I've tried to recreate it and I just can't do it. It doesn't come out as well.
It's complex. Indian food is this food that's like, it can take you like, 3 hours to make a meal, but you can eat it in like 10 minutes. So
Yeah,
you just need a lot of leftovers so you can have it for multiple meals.
Yeah,
so.
I do crave it every now and again. The biryani, I get the taste in my mouth, and I'm like, all right. I call my wife. I go, this is what I want. And so it's funny you should say that. I don't know. I keep having this vision of you having like trays stacked up on like a baker's cart in your apartment. And I'm wondering if that's right. Like, do you just have like trays and trays of chickpeas?
So I did not have that kind of cart in my apartment, but at our first manufacturing partner, we made our snacks in a very, very, very manual way, and it involved baking and carts and stuff like that. So that's when I was learning about manufacturing.
So is that hard for someone who's so conscious of the health and the value of what someone's eating that now you're basically letting a machine make it? Was that a hard thing for you to let go, or did you accept the fact it's the same?
No, the machine part wasn't the hard part, because I did come from, large brands, and I understood like everything from food quality to safety, and having been in, manufacturing plants before. It wasn't that was hard. It was the fact that my background, even though I worked for these large brands, I was always on the brand marketing or the sales side. Like I had cross-functional partners, right, that led operations and manufacturing and things like that. And so what I didn't know was like the fact that what I was trying to do in my kitchen, I mean, I kind of knew it, but I didn't fully internalize it, that like when I found success on a process in my kitchen, it means nothing for like my ability to find success in scaling up how to make that, And so, when I started the brand and I got that first set of purchase orders from that one store, from that Whole Foods, I had found a small boutique manufacturer in New England who, because no one else would take me on and produce our snacks, they were like, well, we've got this oven, we've got these people, and like these other, machinery or capabilities, like if you can figure out how to make your snacks here, like within our facility, like here's like, you pay us this flat rate per day and we'll make it. And it turned out to be an incredibly inefficient and really bad way to make our snacks. But just because they didn't have any of the right machinery or the right capabilities, and it was not the right set of processes, and it took us, and I know you don't have a manufacturing background, so maybe this may or may not resonate with you, but like it took us, 5 days to make one pallet of food. And so that was like, it's just not viable, basically. So, but it allowed me to get started, and kind of validate the concept. So
it's quite a story, and I could go on for a long time with it. When's the last vacation you went on?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. We were supposed to go on vacation in April, but obviously that whole thing got canceled. So probably December. I think a lot of people are long overdue, right, for vacation. How about you?
Where'd you go?
We were just with family in Chicago.
Yeah, for me, we squeezed in one more. My daughter's doing college tours, so we squeezed in one trip to New York. We went to Columbia, and it was quite an experience. My wife usually takes the tours. I finally got to do one, and we saw a show, Hadestown, which was, if you're a Broadway person, it's great. And then we saw a tour of the campus, which Columbia is beautiful, and just had a great time together. And literally, COVID was breaking out in January, and so we managed to get home in time.
Oh my God!
But yeah, that was my last time being anywhere.
Wow. Yeah, we're thinking about maybe going somewhere for this around the Christmas holiday, but it's hard. Like we were thinking of going in August, and even then we were thinking of maybe going to Hawaii, but then Hawaii shut down for outside visitors and stuff. So it's so uncertain. It's hard to plan. It's hard to plan anything kind of far away. So.
Yeah, it's the reason why I'm asking is I'm curious about your time with your extended family, your parents. I don't know if you have any siblings or your in-laws and all of that. I mean, everyone must be just so immensely. I don't know. Whenever I use the word proud, it always gives me the implication that someone did something that surprised us. Like, I'm not proud of you. When I met you, I knew that this was something that you were capable of. So I'm more excited for you than that. And I'm wondering how do they feel when they talk to you and they stare at you and they realize, I mean, this is an amazing accomplishment. To get something on the shelves of 15,000 stores is a 1 in a million, probably more type of situation. So before I let you go, I'm curious, like, what is all their take on all of this?
I think that everybody takes it in stride, right? They know this, they're aware of this, and I send out every now and then, not that much, but every now and then I'll send out like, oh, we're in this magazine, or we're just featured here, or we're launching here, or I always have like some good story, I guess, to share, in terms of there's always just so much activity happening. So that part is exciting. But yeah, I think I think my parents and my husband's parents, I think that they're proud of what I've been able to do with the brand, and they recognize that as an achievement. And especially, again, with there being entrepreneurship in our families and both sides, and they're happy about it. So, and they're happy that they could play a role, the role that they did play in helping the brand get to where it is. So
yeah, I mean, you clearly have done it the way you wanted to. It was the snack that you wanted, with the nutritional value that you wanted, with the variety of things for people who are vegetarian and what have you. I mean, it's truly amazing, because usually you have to compromise somewhere, and it doesn't sound like you did. It sounds like this is exactly what you envisioned, and this is what happened. The world according to Poorvi. And it's interesting how that's all gone. So that may be the most impressive part of all of this, is that what you imagined is what happened.
Well, we are still pushing the boundaries of what's possible, right? And so we're not there yet. I mean, the original vision of the brand was really, it started with one product line, and it was really about giving people a real alternative to your standard potato chips and crackers, right? Like, could we take a chickpea, a bean, and make it taste so good and flavor it in the right way that somebody wants to eat a barbecue crispy roasted chickpea instead of a barbecue potato chip? And with some of the work our team is doing, we continue to push the boundary and actually show that we can make something like that happen. And so ultimately, we're still working on delivering that vision, and but we're getting closer every day. That's the exciting part.
Yeah, I definitely brag about you when I see it at the airport or at the stores. I'm like, I know her. I've talked to her before.
Thank you.
She's
Thank you
awesome.
for supporting the brand.
Absolutely, man. You kidding me? So I would love to talk to you more, but I think that you've been so candid about how you've built this up and how close you are with your family and how this has been a part of your life. And you said something earlier to me that I'll close with, is that you talked about how the imbalance of your family is what gives you guys balance. And so if you wouldn't mind closing with explaining that, because I thought that was incredibly insightful.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I think I was just sharing with you that I've developed this kind of way of thinking about, people always ask me about work-life balance. I think especially as a mom, that is a question that I get all the time. And I have developed this theory, or kind of this way of thinking about it, which is that there is no such thing as perfect balance.
Yep.
And no matter what direction you choose in life, and by the way, it could be multiple directions, and that direction can change, you're going to find what works for you by kind of like, if you had all these different parts of your life and they were almost, obviously this is oversimplifying it, but if all of these different parts of your life were levers, and you could say like these different dials, and like, I want, this week it's going to be more of family and less of work and more of cooking or whatever that might be. It's never that every dial in your life is like perfectly balanced, right? It's that you're going to go through phases or weeks or months or years where certain things are dialed way up and certain things are dialed way down. And that's what's right for you in that moment. And so that imbalance creates the balance for you that's right in that moment. So,
well, that captures exactly why I started this in the first place, was to dispel that myth. I mean, family's messy. It's hard. It doesn't work some days. Sometimes more than just some days. Sometimes it's a lot of the days it doesn't work, and you know, you miss this recital, or you drop this ball at work, or you haven't had a date night in months, and that's what I wanted to share is folks like you who on the surface look so successful and everything is going perfectly well. Your life is just as hard as everybody else's. It's the same kind of magic and lack of magic that you're living. So I'm thrilled that you feel the same way, because I think that the whole family balance thing is a hoax. And I think the imperfection is what makes it perfect. And so I'm glad to talk to you, because it's always have to be validated by somebody that you respect. So thanks so much for joining. You've been as fantastic as I imagined. Thank you again from the family business.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, no, you're every bit as good as I thought. So, thank you again from the family business, where family is what binds us. And this has been Poorvi Patodia. Definitely check out Vienna Snacks. You won't be sorry. Poorvi, take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.